Journeys of Hope. Life is a journey, and this is your spiritual passport. Where will the journey take us today? Let's walk together as we learn to become people of faith and hope.
Welcome to Journeys of Hope. I'm Jason Nunez, your guide for today's journey, and I serve as Media Production Coordinator for Pilgrim Center of Hope. Now, Pilgrim Center of Hope is the producer of this weekly radio and podcast program, and we are a nonprofit ministry founded in 1993 with a mission of guiding people to walk in hope with Christ and the church. Now, today, we of course will find hope along our daily pilgrimage of life. We are going to be looking at the very heavy topic of depression. Now, according to the World Health Organization, about 280 million people worldwide have depression, including 5% of the world's adults and 5.7% of adults above the age of 60. Now, the National Institute of Mental Health estimates that 21 million U.S. adults had at least one major depressive episode in the year 2021. Considering all this, how can we find hope? That's the question that we're really going to be diving into. Our guest today is a licensed professional counselor and a certified spiritual director, and she, of course, will help us along our journey today. Now, speaking of our journey, here's what you can expect. You can expect to discover the role prayer can play in a journey with depression. You will also hear some practical ways to incorporate faith into our daily lives when struggling with depression, and also find meaning and purpose in our suffering. Today, I am pleased and honored to welcome licensed professional counselor and Pilgrim Center of Hope speaker team member, Jeanette Santos. Now, before we bring her on, here's a little bit about Jeanette. She holds a master's degree in marriage and family therapy and is a certified spiritual director. Her specialties include grief and loss recovery and overcoming anxiety based on the Word and healing of Jesus. With over 40 years of marriage and experience raising 5 children with 6 grandchildren, her storytelling speaks to the challenges and conflicts that individuals, couples, and families of all stages in life face daily toward hope and healing. So without further ado, welcome, Jeanette. How are you?
Just wonderful. I'm so delighted to be here with you, Jason. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, yes, and thank you for taking time out of your day to go on this journey with us. I could not think of a better person to ask. Now, I must say, Jeanette, before we get into this here, you and I shared an amazing conversation before we hit the record button. And if this episode is anything remotely close to that conversation, our listeners are really in for a treat and really in for some great ways to kind of help us on our daily pilgrimage of life. I'm very excited. So let's get right into it, shall we?
Sure.
Alrighty. So, Jeanette, what inspired you to become a licensed professional counselor?
Well, someone once did a great kindness for me, helping me get on track when I was lost. And out of gratitude, I asked the Lord, Lord, how can I show my gratitude? And he said, do what was done for you. Go out and do what was done for you. And I've been on that journey ever since. Never looked back.
Wow. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You essentially answered the call, right?
Yeah, I did.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
But I was well prepared for it because everything that I went through was a setup for what I'm doing now.
Wow.
Had I not gone through it,
yes,
I would not be able to do what I'm doing today.
It's all part of God's masterful plan, right?
Exactly.
When you're going through what you've gone through, you
Yes.
probably wouldn't have been able to fathom, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or make the connections that we make daily.
Exactly.
Yes.
Praise be to God.
Thank you.
Praise be to God. So, Jeanette, depression can take on different forms. What are some possible signs and symptoms of someone struggling with depression?
Okay. So depression, we can categorize it into 2 main parts. And one would be situational depression, which depends on what you've been through in your life. The situation as in a loss of a loved one, a loss of a job, loss of a relationship, has to do with loss mostly, and how you feel and how you struggle to get through that loss. And so the struggle may take a while, and for those situational until we can get through it. And we get through it by way of prayer, guidance, spiritual guidance. But we always have in the back of our mind that somehow we're going to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a situational one. The clinical depression is a little deeper, it goes a little stronger, and that the symptoms are the same. You still feel sad, depressed, blue, detached, angry, all of these things. But it doesn't have to have exactly a reason why. But the reasons are usually can go as far back as childhood trauma, unresolved issues, things like that. But so there are medications and there's therapies for that as well. But they do they have a tendency to recur. And when we know that and when we can understand the cycles of those things, they're much more workable, and they're workable. So
right.
You can work through them.
Right. Now it being workable is essentially saying it's something that it takes time to kind of go through and either learn how to kind of navigate through.
Yes, trial and error.
Trial and error.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
With both medication and therapy. So,
it's not like there's a flow chart or a checklist of if this happens, then do this, and then if this happens, then do this. But it's much more different and more deeper than an approach like that.
Right. For adults, there's a contrast between how adults and children behave when they're depressed. Mm-hmm. And those are the things that we would want to know.
Right.
Those are the things we would want to look up. And when we speak of, looking something up online, we always want to make sure that you're following through with a reliable source, as in Mayo Clinic or NAMI here in San Antonio, National Alliance for Mental Health. And those are the kind of places that I would suggest that we can look for, what's going on. What can I expect? Where can I go with this?
Yes, and I think that's a great point to mention, because it's all too often we try to kind of figure it out on our own, right? Let me just kind of search what I'm experiencing and try to find out myself what it is that's happening. Right. And when we're searching for answers, and sometimes maybe even being desperate for answers, we may search and attach to something that's maybe not as serious as what it may be.
Right.
So having those good sources and those reputable sources is very, very key. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yes. So if you're looking, you can look online and find the possible the signs of depression, and you're going to find yourself in there, whether you're depressed or not. There are things. However, just know that no two depressions are alike, and so that's why we have to do the homework and figure out what that is.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, taking a step and looking at this with the lens of our faith, right? What kind of role can prayer play in our journey with depression?
Okay, that's a good question. So what brings us to depression is the fact that our brain is taking in more negative thoughts and reacting more negatively to those negative thoughts. And we have more of those than positive thoughts. So if I'm going to be thinking negative, I'm going to be acting negative. And when I start acting negative, the world around me responds negative. So now we're stuck in a negative world. And so we do that, and we can still survive, but we're doing it not really realizing how it's affecting all of our life, our relationships and our jobs, everything. So we want to cut back on the negative thoughts and start introducing some positive thoughts. It's very hard to do when you're already angry and upset and depressed. It's really hard to do. How can I come up with a happy statement? I can't. So where does prayer come in, and how does it work? Well, prayer, by the simple word or the simple name Jesus, that already inspires us to feel, okay, this is a good name of a good story, it's all good.
Right.
Okay, so now so good news there. And so I'm introducing a positive thought. And I'm not forcing myself to do it either, and I'm not denying anything, or I'm not making anything up, but it's there. So the more of those, not happy thoughts, but positive thoughts that I can produce in my brain, the more it offsets all those negative ones. And there's a lot of negative ones to offset, so there's a whole lot of work we have to do, right? And so now, if we can't pray, and many people cannot bring themselves to pray when they're depressed, that's okay, because there are other forms of prayer, such as listening to the music that just the organist at our church, she plays beautifully. That inspires me. I don't have to say anything. I'm just listening, but I'm being inspired. And those are positive. Those are all positive feedback that your body is, positive thoughts that your body is taking in.
Yes.
So again, to offset the negative. And so if we do that as consistently as a negative thought, we're getting back on track. We will be getting back on track eventually. So that's where I feel that we've been, we pray the rosary. I sometimes just holding the beads in my hand without having to pray.
Yes.
Just the sensation of the beads in my hand is enough to give me bring me a positive, like endorphins, right?
Right. Yeah, and it's, you make that point, Jeanette, and it actually brings memories back to me of having a rosary in my pocket, right? And having times where I just feel so emotional that I get angry or I feel uncertain about a certain situation I'm faced with.
Yes.
And just, you're right, just like you mentioned a moment ago, just by feeling those beads.
Yes.
It can bring you peace.
Yes.
It can bring you peace.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe not saying the rosary overall or even beginning it, but just feeling it in your hands and the beads.
Right.
I've experienced the same with praying the Divine Mercy. To where before I may have felt some trepidation, but when I'm done, there's just a calm.
Yeah.
There's a calm, and I've
Exactly.
been in a room with 80 men, and when there's a room of 80 men, there can be some emotions there. They can be strong, and they're and at the end of praying the Divine Mercy, it's peaceful.
Yes.
It's so peaceful that you can physically feel it upon your body.
Yes.
That's
Exactly.
amazing.
And that's what we're aiming for, is just finding that peace and being able to just stay open to whatever messages come to your head that will probably be more positive than they were outside of your prayer, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Wow. Yeah, that's I really like that. So you have prayer. You also mentioned music, right? And it can be different kind of music,
art,
right?
Stained glass windows.
Sacred art even, right?
I was on my knees the other day on it was a gray day at Mass, and I was thinking, oh, God, I was already feeling blue. And I said, Lord, can you do something about this? And all of a sudden, a ray of light comes through the stained glass window, and I thought, hey, thank you. That's exactly
That's what I
right
wanted.
there. That's all I needed. And I was feeling so good. My shoulders came back, and, I was ready for the rest of the day.
Yes.
In that one moment. Isn't that amazing?
Praise be to God for experiences like that, right?
Yes.
It's those experiences that we can draw on, and
Right.
when we feel ourselves in similar situations, to know that there is hope, right?
Right.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. I like that. So, Jeanette, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling with depression?
Well, the first thing I can say, I'd like to say, is see a doctor. Don't hesitate to see a doctor, because doctors, they're going to help you. Don't try to self-analyze or right. It's best if you just get it done. Go see a doctor. If you can decide if it's a regular PCP, or you can look for a psychiatrist, whatever. Sometimes they may delay. They may make you wait, but stick to it. Just see a doctor. That's something that's essential. Step one. And second step, I think, would be to stick to your search for help. If you can't find it right away, don't let it go. Don't drop it. Oh, well, see, I didn't find anybody, so I quit. It wasn't for me. That's not true. You have to keep looking. Even if you find somebody and you don't feel like that was the right person, that's okay. Keep going. You have to keep going. Keep looking until you find the one that suits you, that fits you well. And your insurance, because all of those things are a big consideration these days, right?
They do come into play.
Sure.
Definitely.
And then the next one would be, definitely, on your journey through depression, you've got medication, you've got a doctor, you've got to have a therapist. I mean, Nobody can force you to do that, but it's the best suggestion I can give you because we work together. You can take medication, you'll feel better, but you're not going to be healed. The healing takes place within you with the work that you're doing with your brain, introducing more positive thoughts, more positive feelings, telling yourself positive statements. Those become your reality. And without that, you've only got that medication that's numbing you or keeping your brain quiet, but it's not really teaching you to do better. It's not teaching you to go forward and to heal your thought processes, that are the things that are keeping you down.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So then I would also suggest keeping record of all your feelings, all your emotions.
Yes.
If you're taking medication, how do you feel? How have you felt after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, right? Keep records of those things because you may, in your journey toward healing, you may need to see somebody else, and you want to keep all of that information available to the next professional so they don't have to start all over again. Because it's a long journey, and it's kind of frustrating sometimes.
It's funny that you mentioned that,
Mm-hmm.
because keeping a record of that, it helps if you do have to change, doctors,
Exactly.
whatever the case is.
Right.
Sometimes those changes are out of your control,
Mm-hmm.
right? The employer that you have the insurance with changes carriers, and all of a
Exactly.
sudden the
Sure.
doctor that you see is now out of network.
Right.
Right. What do you do then?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you have that historical information
Sure. Yes.
to relay, which
Right.
that won't be a cause for delay in your progress.
Right. And keep a calendar that you can write, make a little, just any little icon that you can that just shows where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Had a good day, smiley face. Had a bad
Yes,
day,
yes.
frowning face. And you don't have to get too elaborate about those descriptions, but just those little icons will help you to remember, oh yes, 3 days ago I was feeling well, and now 4 days later I'm not too well, whatever. And so those are real important things that you can keep track of yourself, and you can see when you're actually doing better. And that's real important. The other thing is to consider joining a support group. Look around, shop around, ask questions. And because one of the things that we don't want to do is join people. We want to isolate when we're really depressed. We don't want to get out. We don't want to have to get dressed. We don't want to have to talk to people either. But the truth is that the support groups are there for a very good reason. They're very, very helpful because not only are you going to talk about what's bothering you, you're going to listen to how other people have survived. People share their success stories in these support groups, and then you get ideas of, oh, I haven't tried that. I've never done this. Maybe I should try. Maybe there is something in this. They introduce a lot of artwork. They introduce a lot of creative ways to get through these things also that your doctor won't tell you. And because it's in a group atmosphere, you start to feel like you're doing something productive and fun almost.
Right.
And so, yes, because everybody's feeling the same. Nobody's, nobody's truly completely perfect. And so it's very encouraging. It's very, very encouraging. I've been to many grief support groups, and I always start with, oh, I'm going to have to hear somebody's sad story. But it's not that at all. It's not. It turns in within hours. It turns into something great because someone is so willing to help you. Someone is so willing to share a positive with you. And that support that you get is invaluable. I mean, it's really the best way to get out of the funk, like
Sure,
you say.
sure.
And so last one I went to, they were teaching us how to do just artwork on a canvas. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, I'm terrible at art. But then they taught me, just put a splash here, put a splash there. And then I saw the true colors, and then I thought, wow, that touched me, and that was a good thing. So that was, consider joining a group. If you don't like one group, try another one. Just keep trying until you get to something that you feel comfortable with. But don't let it go. The other, and one, for me, the most important one would be to show up at church. You don't have to go to Sunday Mass. I can't tell you to do that. You use your judgment.
Sure.
But for the sake of your health, your mental health, try this one thing. Just go and sit in a church. You don't have to talk. You don't have to read. You don't have to do it. Just sit. and talk to the Lord. Share your thoughts, share your concerns with Him, and say everything you have to say. Get it all out.
Right.
And then be quiet.
Oh.
And just sit there in the quiet. And before long, you'll hear something. Something will happen. You'll notice something going on in the church. And that's the feedback you were needing. Just they're slight. It starts out with practically nothing at first. But if you sit there long enough, you'll start to see things you had not seen before. You'll feel things, and it's amazing how just sitting in a quiet, in our spiritual hospital,
right.
as we had said earlier, right?
Yeah. I believe the line earlier we said was, the church is not a museum for saints, but it's a hospital for sinners.
It is.
Wow.
Right. And so, I think that that's where I've had most of my growth is just sitting in a chapel. Once I was sitting in a church, and I was actually on my knees, and I was crying. I was hurting, and I was all by myself there. At least I thought I was. And an elderly lady walked in with some bags, and I hadn't seen her there before. Usually, if you go to Mass every day, you'll see the same people. But this lady came from nowhere, and she's had all her bags in her hand. And then she came up to me, and she touched my shoulder, and she said, and she gave me a card, and she said, "He told me to give this to you." And I said, and I looked around. I didn't see anybody in the church, and I said, "Who told you to give this to me?" It was an image of the Divine Mercy.
Wow.
And she said, "He did." She pointed at the card, and she said, "He told me to give this to you." And I couldn't stop. I was so joyful. Because I didn't walk in looking for anything like that, but that was the response I got for being there, for being faithful and being on my knees and knowing that my prayers were going to be heard. And sure enough, he said, "You can stop crying now." Oh, that was so great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even just to hear those words, right? You can stop crying now. Yeah, there's power in that.
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Important steps to take. A very good list to have, Jeanette.
Right.
Thank you very much for sharing those. It sounds like to be intentional.
Yes.
Right. To be intentional, and when you're on this journey with depression, being in its grips, being intentional can be hard.
Yes. Yes, we have to have a stick-to-itiveness about it, because only then can we see results. This is another reason why we want to keep a chart, But yes, it is.
Very good. That's a very good point. As stick-to-itiveness, I like that. I like that. So your last point there was to go to a church. So that leads me to ask you this question then, Jeanette. How can the Catholic Church better support those who struggle with depression?
Well, I frankly, from what I've been seeing in the last few months, I'm very, very happy that, this, what we're doing here, focusing on this issue, as a matter of fact, bringing it to life and letting people see we're interested in helping. We're interested. We know we've got to do something.
Yes.
We can't just sweep it under the rug. It's something we've got to address, and we have to, we have to share the knowledge that we have with each other. So that it's not such a scary thing to anybody anymore. It's just something we're going to have to work with. And so I can say in most of the parishes that I've heard, they've got a little program about this, a program that educates and brings awareness to. And I think that they're doing a pretty good job. There is one, Compassionate Friends. I'm sure you've heard of them, right? And they're actually taught to how to be a compassionate friend, and those are very, very helpful, because we want to be able to know that anybody we approach at our church, we can trust them. We can trust that they know what's going on, that they know how to handle my issues and whatever.
Right.
They don't have to be professionals, but they can have a background or a basis of, what's the proper thing, the right way to address these things. But so one thing that I do think that we could maybe improve on a little is in supporting the caregivers. Because it's very difficult, really difficult to have to deal with your own problems and then take on a negativity that's overwhelming in someone else, And so I think that if we could work, I would like to see something worked on in that area of supporting the caregivers, because this is a place that needs more support and more attention. Right.
Yeah,
And it'll always be around. It's not like we're going to get we're not going to get through this one too quick. Especially since I will say, one of the things that I find a source of constant work and negativity is the cell phone.
Sure.
I mean, it's at your fingertips, and if you open it, it could be something cute and funny, but for the most part, it's something scary. And so, we have to have something that counteracts that one. We have to have something that balances us out. And so I'd like the church to think about that one. Yeah.
There you go.
And I do see a lot of work if you know the right the right websites to go to. We do get a lot of that. But specifically in this area of dealing with depression and anxiety, and the long road ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, indeed. And I like your point about shining a light on the caregivers, because the caregivers are there as a primary support for the person who is in this journey. And to kind of go a step further, it's not just the person who's living with the depression, but it's also the journey of the caregiver, because they are accompanying them on that path, on that journey. So some kind of a support system for them would certainly be a fantastic idea.
Sure.
And that's certainly a great suggestion. Certainly a great suggestion there. In relation to, phones, certainly there's a lot that can be said about that.
Sure.
Praise be to God, Pilgrim Center of Hope, we've kind of gone into that outreach of trying to help as far as providing media that can provide hope overall and point people back to Christ, point people back to the church. And that could be for the caregiver or even the person in the midst of battling that depression there. Well, Jeanette, believe it or not, our first segment is really coming to an end. So I want to say this, which I'm sure is something you've said many times before, but that's our time. But that's our time just for the first segment here.
Okay.
So we are going to take a short break, so please stay with us. In the second segment, we will discuss some practical ways to incorporate faith into our daily lives when we or someone we care about is struggling with depression. You're listening to Journeys of Hope, and we will be right back after this short break, so stay with us.
You're on the everyday journey of life, and sometimes it's tough to keep hope alive. Well, that's why Pilgrim Center of Hope is here for you. Not only does Pilgrim Center of Hope provide you programs like Journeys of Hope, but did you know you can also find other helpful media productions from Pilgrim Center of Hope on our website, pilgrimcenterofhope.org. Every first Friday, take an audio retreat with Jesus called Meet the Master. Every third Thursday, have a social with the saints. And our new quarterly series, Who is the Man of the Shroud, meets at the intersection of faith, true crime, science and medicine, history, art, and much more. Find it all at pilgrimcenterofhope.org or on your favorite podcast app. And keep hope alive in your daily journey. Pilgrim Center of Hope, guiding people to Christ.
Welcome back to Journeys of Hope. I'm Jason Nunez, Media Production Coordinator for Pilgrim Center of Hope. And today I'm joined by licensed professional counselor, Jeanette Santos. We are learning about depression and finding hope as well. So, Jeanette, a question for you as we jump back in here. What are some practical ways to incorporate faith into our daily lives when we're struggling with depression?
Sure. So, some practical ways. First thing I would say is learn to breathe. When we breathe from the gut, which means the abdomen, right? If I take a deep breath and my abdomen moves, I'm breathing correctly. If I take a deep breath and my shoulders move, I'm not. I'm stressing myself out, right?
Sure.
I'm stressing myself out. So we're looking for the breath that comes from what we call like the deep breath that goes all the way to the bottom of the lungs. Okay. Why is breath so important? Read Genesis. How did he bring Adam to life? He breathed life into him. He breathed life into him. So breath is so important. You have a newborn baby, you want to check if they're breathing, you check their abdomen, because that's
right. When they're asleep in the crib. Yep.
Right.
Definitely.
So breathing is important, to breathe from all the way from the abdomen, because before you can do that, you have to exhale. You have to empty the lungs so that you can fill them. And so we'll see this kind of over and over again. We'll see that pattern of emptying and filling, okay? The next one would be to find a quiet place in your life somewhere. Find your quiet place so that you can talk to Jesus. Now, it's not just about talking, but also about listening. And so what's my first step? Well, do I have to know a lot of prayers? Do I have to memorize lengthy? No. All we need is just the word Jesus, just the name Jesus, 3 times. Take a breath, Jesus. Another breath, and then say Jesus. Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. That will put you in a mood for accepting more things, for introducing more things and accepting more things into your psyche and everything, so that you're getting to that place of peace. The next one I would recommend doing, and this is separate from the breathing, but is try to walk daily. Your walk should be not stressful. It should be something that in a place that you feel safe, first of all. Mm-hmm. It can't be slippery, scary. Some place that you feel safe and that you can keep walking. The idea is that if you're walking, especially you're walking away from your house where you live, we're walking away from your work, you're walking away, you seem to be leaving the problems behind. And so the air blows through your hair, it's blowing all of the problems away from you. In those moments when you're still walking and you're not really thinking about much, that's when the Lord does his best work. Wherever you go, you're going to have to come back. So if you walk 15 minutes forward, you're going to have to walk 15 minutes back. In the first 15 minutes, you've left everything behind. In the next 15 minutes, the Lord is filling you again with those thoughts that are more positive. So this is a really good meditation, good practice. Yeah. Yes. If you're walking away from something, you're free of it. You don't have to carry it.
It's behind you.
It's behind you.
Yes.
Then you walk back. Instead of walking back to the problem, you've walked back to the solution. The solution is there for you. Why? Yeah. Because the Lord has been working on that solution while you were walking. It's great. It really is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. The other thing you can do is simply, and we mentioned this before with the rosary, but simply hold a crucifix in your hand.
Right.
And, you can recall the crucifixion, the 14 stations, whatever, and and put yourself in the image, through the image, and see what can you feel. Because when we're depressed, we don't feel anything but negative, sadness, But when we walk with him, and the images are there to remind us that all of this he did for us. All of this he did for us, all 14 stations, right?
Right.
And so I've got to remember that. He loves me to this point, to the point of giving his life. Those are really good things to help me feel like I'm not alone in this. I'm not abandoned. He's with me. He's walking with me. I'm walking with him. And so those are really good things. Another one is, which I really love, this one is open your Bible to read Psalm 130. And it's out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. And so read it. That's the one that I think can be read in its entirety without getting too tired, because it's so beautiful. It's so beautifully written. It's a cry for help. And who doesn't need help, Right. It's a beautiful, honest cry for help. And then after all of that, squeeze in another Jesus 3 times. It really helps.
It's a nice way to begin and a nice way even to end, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To kind of send you off on your way.
Right.
With, maybe, if not a shifted paradigm, a more hopeful one, right?
Yes,
so that
exactly.
way you can continue on.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, earlier today, before we started recording, we had this conversation about what ifs compared to even ifs.
Yeah.
So I have this question for you, Jeanette. Mm-hmm. How about some spiritual practices that can help us cope with depression?
Well, we'll talk about the what if versus the even if.
Yes,
okay.
please.
So in our negative mentality, when we're depressed and anxious, we can't think of anything positive. It doesn't come natural. We have to really work at it. So the most natural that comes out is the negative thoughts. What if? Well, what if I never get well? What if I stay in this? What if there's no cure for me? All of these negative thoughts that happen to everyone. But it's important to notice that a what if does not come from God. God will never threaten us with a what if. well, if it doesn't come from God, who does it come from? Well, it comes from the evil one, who's trying to scare us away from trusting God. He doesn't want us to trust God. So he says, well, what if? What if the sky should fall? What if you don't get this job you wanted? I mean, that's how we scare ourselves, right? And we will stay away from the Lord because we can't even trust that he will answer this one. Okay. But my suggestion is to incorporate something better, which is, and instead of a what if, well, look, after a what if, there's always a negative statement. Sure. Always. So what if we say something, what if? We can transform this into an even if.
Yes.
Now think about that. Even if the sky should fall, even if I didn't get the job, even if I have to carry this load for the rest of my life. Okay, what's on the other side of that even if? Strength, courage, power, love, kindness, all of these wonderful things. So it's even if I can't control what I'm going through. What's the rest of the sentence? It's always positive. Okay, so then let's practice some of that. Even if I can't get through this, I have a Lord who loves me. I have friends who will, I have my church. I have even the untapped potential, right? I have even that that I have to work on. So, and even if will bring me closer to my Lord. A what if doesn't. And that's why we're always in the pits in a what if. But if we and I've tried this many times, it's made my day. If I start a day like, oh no, what if this? What if I get there late? Well, even if I get to church late, I'm still going to be there in time for, I'll still
Sure.
I still have, there's always something that I can, that can give me the strength to keep going.
Right.
Not be stuck in, a what if. What if is always a negative, even if always has something positive, which is where we need to be.
Exactly. So that's kind of that's a takeaway right there, to where if we find ourselves falling into that what if scenario, that what if mentality, right? We can shift that to even if, to change it more into a positive.
Well, a what if leaves me weak. And even
unknown,
if
right?
Right.
Yeah,
and
what
even
if leaves you unknown, and even if you know already what's happening.
Well, and even if I don't know the answer, and even if already makes me feel strong.
Yes.
Just look at, and this is the whole point to this, is to check yourself. How do you feel after a what if? Oh, gosh. But how do I feel after an even if? Even if I feel strengthened, I feel empowered.
Yes.
And then, which is not where I was with my depression,
Yes.
So those are the things that we're looking at.
Beautiful. That's great. That's some good insight there into that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jeanette. So how can we find meaning and purpose in our suffering?
Meaning and purpose. That was a really tough question. It's a hard one because you have to go through this journey to find out what that is. You can't stay stuck where you are if you're going to look for for the purpose and meaning. Okay. Looking for meaning is I'm looking for a reason to stay alive. I'm looking for that. I'm stuck in this depression. I'm stuck in a problem here. But how am I going to survive it? Well, I've got to have some kind of meaning that keeps me alive so I can get there. And a purpose. So you'd have to do some inner research and check yourself. But the most helpful way to find meaning and purpose is to give it time. You have to give yourself time to get to that place where you're really looking for it. If your mindset is not there, it's not likely that you'll find it. So here's where we go to find it. You join other people. You look for that support group that I'm talking about. When you start talking to other people about what's going on with you, and they tell you their story, in that conversation, in that exchange of thoughts and feelings and ideas, you'll pick up something that wasn't there before. And that's when we know, okay, now I get it. Now I know why. As I said before, when I was going through my stuff, I kept asking the Lord, but why? Why am I... and when is it going to stop? And, what do you need from me that and I didn't see it until after I graduated and I started working and I started doing my counseling, that I realized, well, that's why I went through all of that.
Yes.
That gave it meaning. Now I understood why. If I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be where I am today. I couldn't be as helpful as I want to be.
Right.
My goal is to be helpful. I couldn't be that person if I hadn't gone through those steps.
Yes.
So now that gave me purpose and meaning. But that was after the fact. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be, I can't find out today. I have to live through it to figure that one out. So that's real important, purpose and meaning.
It is, and I'm sure I'm not alone in sharing that I've had those experiences as well. Sure. Of after the fact, kind of reflecting on, wow, if I had not gone down this path, right, I would not be here. With this experience, this know-how, or just this mentality to meet this head on now.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yes, that's what it is.
That's amazing. That's some good insight there. I appreciate that very much. Now, so, sticking with this topic of finding meaning and purpose in our suffering here, from that point of making that realization of, if I have not endured this, where do we go from there? How can we keep that hopeful mindset to still continue down this path of depression or this path of suffering, so that way we can still continue to find meaning and purpose?
Well, when I found my meaning and my purpose, for example, here's another one. When I was so anxious, I had my moments of anxiety, things like that. My children were watching me.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
And did I want them to grow up to be like this? No. So I had my purpose right there. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to be very intentional in fixing myself up, because they're watching me.
Yes.
And I can't expect better if I'm not putting out better. And so that was my purpose. Did it solve my issues with my own anxiety? Not exactly, but it gave me the courage to start doing something about it.
Right.
And then meaning also, I mean, what does it mean to me to want to help somebody and not be able to, not have the capacity? There was my meaning. I wanted to help. That was the meaning. Now, how I was going to get there and how long it would take, I didn't know. But I had that intention.
Are there any particular saints we can turn to as a source of hope? So here at Pilgrim Center of Hope, we actually refer to saints as role models of faith.
Yes.
And aside from that, there are friends, right? These are people who lived and walked this earth. And they, some saints endured some really, really harsh and tough times. And yet they've come through on the other side of it, right? Sure. So they are truly our role models of faith. In thinking about this journey that we're on, right, this journey with depression, are there saints we can turn to and just look to and as a source of hope for us?
Sure. Well, since I'm parishioner at Little Flower Basilica, I'm with the Carmelites, right?
Yes.
And so those are the three doctors of the church that have impressed me in their struggle. They all had a struggle. St. John of the Cross was not exactly popular with his own brothers there, the friars, to the point where they even put him in jail or in prison or something. And he was isolated for so many months, and he was being punished for whatever. But the point is, what came out of that? I mean, what came out of that was some beautiful poetry, some beautiful visions of love and life and God, and that who knows that if he hadn't had those traumatic experiences, as bad as they were, it inspired some creativity.
Right.
And that's what impresses me.
Yes.
That, well, is it possible that despite all of the stuff I'm going through, I can express it in a way that's creative, and that's one thing that impressed me. And then Saint Teresa of Avila also restructured their whole the order or the Carmelite nuns, and wrote a book, the Seventh Story Mansion or whatever. I know I read it, but during spiritual direction. But I mean, it was impressive to read that. I mean, the ideas that this woman had, and there was no TV, there was no encyclopedias. I mean, she had this insight that was incredible, but it spurred by some of the torture that anxiety that she went through, and the doubts that she had, the sense of guilt for leaving her family the way she did. All of these things added up to create something positive for the rest of the world for all these centuries later. That's impressive. And then, of course, St. Therese, in her little way, you know,
Right.
that her little way and her quick way to heaven and everything. That's also with the suffering she went through, losing her mother, her sisters leaving to the convent, and things like that. And even being sick of it. It's sick because of, you know, having these illnesses. St. Teresa with her illnesses. It was all of that pressure that was built up inside of them with their lives. But what did they do? They created, and they left behind some beautiful, beautiful things that a normal person doesn't think about, because we don't have that kind of pressure. We don't always have that kind of pressure to inspire us, right? But yeah, those are the people I look up to. I think that, you know, when I feel like, well, when is this going to end? It's going. When it ends, it will be creative. It will have some kind of creativity to it.
There will be some fruit that bears from this journey, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Indeed.
Thank you. You got that right.
Yeah, perfect. So I like to offer 2 saints as well. You know, unfortunately, I can't ask a question about saints and not offer some of my very own.
Yeah.
You know, the saints are one of the aspects of our faith that it really draws me. You know, just from their life, their experiences, the example that they've left for all of us. How blessed are we, right? So for me, one that I look that I turn to, you know, as a source of hope overall, is Padre Pio. For me, he's one of those saints that I can look to and just reflect on his life and the example he lived and the example that he left, and just find hope, just in him. Whether it's I'm in line for confession, or whether, you know, I'm not feeling well health-wise, or, you know, just in any other kind of situation that comes up, you know, throughout life. You know, I can look to him in his life as a source of hope for me.
Oh, yeah.
And then I like to offer a quote. You know, I love saint quotes. One for me is Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, and she's quoted as saying, "Cling to God and leave all the rest to him. He will not let you perish. Your soul is very dear to him. He wishes to save it."
So beautiful. He wishes to save it. We got to hang on to those words. Let me give you mine from St. Augustine.
Yes, please.
"You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." And that's where we are when we're depressed. We're restless. We're restless. But we can remember these words. "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." There you go.
Same quotes to me. It's one of my most favorite things in the world, because you can find hope in so many of them.
Sure.
And to me, it's just one of my favorite things to look up and just kind of dive into. So again, how blessed are we to have these examples of these amazing role models of faith. So another question I have for you, Jeanette, here is, how can we support loved ones who are struggling with depression? If, you know, someone's listening and they may feel like, you know what, this conversation reminds me of my husband, my wife, my son, my granddaughter, my niece, my nephew. You know, how can those who are listening support loved ones who are struggling with depression?
All right. So I think it's important to realize that we don't have all the answers, even medically yet. I mean, there's still things we don't understand or know. But I think that if you're struggling with something like this, even in your own home or in your environment, it's important to get the right resources. So I was quoted earlier, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. It's NAMI, which here in San Antonio, it's NAMI GSE, which is National Alliance of Mental Illness Greater San Antonio. You just have to Google them, and they've got this information that you need. Also, another very strong one is the Mayo Clinic. You get the latest and the most accurate information, and then it leads you to other national alliances that you can make with in your state and your city. Then there's the National Institute of Mental Health, NIMH. Those are very reliable resources to get the information that you're looking for. For finding a therapist, which I strongly encourage, I think I can't say it enough, that you have to really get somewhere on your journey to recovery. See a doctor and see a therapist. Again, if you don't find the person you're looking for at the beginning, keep looking. Don't stop. Nobody's going to yell at you for trying another person, right? And the best, I think, the quickest connection that I know of is for therapists is through Psychology Today Therapist Directory. Just Google that, and then it'll show you a map of the U.S. You point out where you are and even give your zip code, and they'll give you the list of people in your area. And then you get to see their profiles, their picture, and so you're more encouraged to go forward. And you can call these people at any time. If they're full, well, you'll find somebody else. Just keep going. Just the main thing is don't give up. Don't stop. Just keep working at it. You'll find somebody.
I'd like to add to those suggestions, and it's something that you've suggested, so I'm just kind of recycling it here.
Okay.
It's two, actually. It's pray and go to church.
Oh, definitely. That was on my other page.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
I was just, yes, pray and go to church. Definitely. So what is prayer? I mean, it's so simple. It could be 3 words. It doesn't take a whole lot. It could be music. It could be windows. It could be, a statue. What I've picked up, I mean, I've been doing this for years. My mother used to tell us, find a penny, pick it up, all day long you'll have good luck. Well, I thought that was kind of, luck. I don't know if I believe in luck, but once I started picking up pennies, and then I realized, I said, Lord, in my darkest hours, in my deepest problems, I always find little pennies somewhere. Wow. And I thought, Lord, why are you sending me pennies? And then he said, pick it up and look at it. And I thought, well, penny, that's the monetary item of less value. Why would a penny? Well, but what makes it valuable, he says, is look what it says. In God we trust. Such a small coin, such a nothing, and yet it's valuable because it reminds me that I've got to be trusting God. And nobody else is going to tell me to do that. Nobody actually stops me in the street and says, hey, do you trust God today? Well, no, but this penny is a good reminder. And I can't tell you how many pennies I've saved up. Because I've got them just when I needed them. And it could be a coincidence, but I don't think so. I think the Lord is giving me a message.
Yes, He's giving you the message when you are needing it, when you're open to it, right?
Sure.
You mentioned 3 words, in God we trust, which are 3 words. I'm going to offer 3 words that you shared with me earlier. Yeah. And it was this prayer, Jesus, help me.
Jesus, help me. That's all.
Yes.
Get on your knees if you can and just say, Jesus, help me. Jesus, I can't do it. I cannot do this. I cannot do this. Help me. And you just get goosebumps because he's being heard. I don't know when he'll answer it. I never know when he's going to answer it. That doesn't matter to me. I just want to know that he heard me, and he makes it clear that he did. And that's a great thing. That's a great thing.
Our time together has been a great thing as well, Jeanette.
Thank you.
I want to thank you very much for sharing such a valuable insight with us. So if there's someone listening out there who would like to contact you, maybe to kind of have this episode as a launching point for them to kind of discuss with you, how can they reach out to you? How can they contact you?
Okay, well, I am also on that Psychology Today Therapist Directory. Just Google those 4 words. And the zip code you'd want to put in to find me is 78230. And also, if you come here to Pilgrim Center of Hope, you might find some cards. If
you want to contact us at Pilgrim Center of Hope, you can certainly go to our website, which is pilgrimcenterofhope.org, or you can call us at 210-521-3377. We'll be happy to relay Jeanette's information to you directly.
Yeah. Also, the Archdiocese has my name on a list of Catholic counselors and spiritual director.
Fantastic.
So you'll find my number there.
Yes, indeed. And just to be specific for our listeners, that would be the Archdiocese of San Antonio, as we are located in San Antonio there as well. Indeed. Well, this brings us to our jewel for the journey. Now, as is, of course, our tradition, we want to give you a jewel for the journey, which is a spiritual gem that you can reflect on throughout the week. So this week, we will reflect on the words shared a moment ago by Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque. And once again, she said, cling to God and leave all the rest to Him. He will not let you perish. Your soul is very dear to Him. He will save it. Wow. Beautiful, beautiful words of hope there.
Yes.
So let us close by bringing praise and honor to God. So in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Fellow pilgrims, we invite you to come visit Pilgrim Center of Hope and learn more about our threefold ministry of pilgrimages, conferences, and media production outreach. We are a nonprofit ministry, so please join us in this vital mission of evangelization as we guide people to Christ and the church. You can learn more at pilgrimcenterofhope.org or by calling us at 210-521-3377. Fellow pilgrims, let's strive to live each day with love, faith, courage, and hope. Until next time, may God bless you.